A furious Canada has put the dagger right into Donald Trump's chest, and they are twisting it, folks. Canada standing up strong against Donald Trump and his despicable regime. The data is in about how effective the Canadian boycott is against Donald Trump and the United States while the Trump regime rules over the United States. And it is devastating for the United States. Predictions were that inbound tourism to the United States would drop 10% from Canada. The boycott actually has resulted in a 22% decline in tourism, which resulted in a $4.5 billion hit just on tourism alone, in visitor spending, that is. And now Canada's showing a pathway for the rest of the world that wants to boycott the World Cup right now. And we're seeing the sentiments grow strong throughout the world about boycotting the World Cup in the United States. And we're seeing hotel bookings and other expected economic gains to the United States not materializing. Prime Minister Carney's strong stance against Donald Trump and the Trump regime has now led this past week. It's official. Prime Minister Carney now has a majority government in Canada. The Liberal Party has a majority, and lots of people are saying if he were to call a snap election, he would only expand that majority. And then, of course, there was Prime Minister Carney's speech that he gave at the Liberal Party convention. It was incredible, where he talked about how powerful the boycott is. Here, let's play this clip.
You know, it started quietly. People choosing a wine from the Okanagan over one from California. Anyone had any bourbon recently? No, I don't think so, no. Sorry. A family planning a vacation to Prince Edward Island instead of booking flights to Florida. Canadians are rediscovering our country.
Let's just take a look right here at the Forbes data. The Canadian travel boycott is costing the U.S. economy. And it goes on to talk about how not only has the boycott been effective, the boycott is picking up right now. And I guess nobody's able to convey what's going on in Canada quite like the head of Meidas Canada, Charlie Angus. Let's bring in Charlie Angus right here to talk about the success of the 14-month Canadian boycott and its impact on states like Nevada and Florida and Niagara Falls. Let's take a listen to what Charlie Angus has to say. Play this clip.
Hey there, Meidas Canada viewers, resistors from all over. Charlie Angus here, wearing my Team Canada jersey. Why? Well, because the battle of the snowbirds is over, and we came and we put on our game face and we took the fight to MAGA in a big way. What am I talking about? I'm talking about how just a few months ago, I was predicting the coming battle of the snowbirds would define whether or not Canadians have the backbone to stand up to MAGA, or we would slink off 1 by 2 by 10 by a couple of thousand, heading to those beaches down in Florida, heading to those condos in Arizona, going off to play golf in New Mexico, as we do in the hard winter. And the numbers are in. Canadians are holding the line in the toughest winter in memory. We are not bending. We are not breaking. It's an important story, and we're going to get into it. It's an important story because we're seeing MAGA is being pushed back on multiple fronts. They present themselves as this force of rage and hate and unbeatability. Well, we just kicked their ass. Thank you, snowbirds. We're going to talk about that today.
More from Charlie Angus right here. Let's play it.
Brought up the numbers of where the Canadians stand in terms of travel this March compared to last March, compared to the March before that. We have come through, I think, one of the hardest winters in memory. It's a winter that you can't blame any of your neighbors for wanting to head south to go hang out down in Florida like they would normally do. But the numbers are in, and they are very, very telling. It said that road travel in March has dropped 35% compared to where it was in 2024. It's dropped dramatically from last year, and last March was probably the height of the first wave of the boycott, and those numbers are even lower. Now get this, talk about the battle of the snowbirds. We've got reverse snowbirds. We had an increase of 4% American visitors to Canada in March. Thank you, all our friends who are resisting MAGA. You came to visit Canada in March, in the coldest, longest winter ever, and your numbers were up. So we're seeing that the United States, that our allies, the ordinary people, are continuing to show support for Canada while we are maintaining that economic pressure on the United States. This is what Forbes says about the impact of the Canadian boycott. They say it is, quote, a massive, sustained economic blow to the American economy that shows no sign of reversing in 2026. A massive, sustained economic blow to Donald Trump, MAGA, and the governors and Congress people who've supported him. So let's talk about some examples. In Las Vegas, Canadians account normally for 44% of all global air traffic into Las Vegas. 44%. That is down dramatically. They normally spend $3.6 billion. Can you imagine that? Canadians spend $3.6 billion in Las Vegas alone. That's gone. That money supported 43,000 American jobs in Nevada. And that is more than the entire manufacturing sector of Nevada. So Nevada voted MAGA. They were all in on Make America Great Again. Yet Canadian tourist dollars supported more jobs in Las Vegas than the entire manufacturing sector in Nevada did. The decline in visitors is the worst in 2 decades. Now, the impacts, of course, are hard. They're being felt by ordinary people, by people who are not part of the MAGA agenda. They say that the tips and income lost by dealers, bartenders, and housekeepers is over 50% of their income wiped out. The unemployment rate in Nevada is now higher than any in the nation. They voted for MAGA. We saw that the Las Vegas mayor was like, come on back, Canadians, we miss you, we love you. Well, what we love is the rule of law. And what we love is democracy. And yeah, we could go and hang out at your blackjack tables, or we could stand for the principle that our sovereignty is not going to be negotiated away by giving us half-price deals at the bar at the pool. It's not going to happen. What we're seeing right now, my friends, is that Canadians made the decision to stand up for our sovereignty, to stand up for democracy, and stand up for the rule of law. And we are taking the fight to MAGA. Because the states that have supported MAGA are the ones being impacted. Florida, with Ron DeSantis, the hate state that he has turned it into, we're not going there. They've lost us. Arizona, they've lost us. Nevada, they've lost us. Now, we know that there's huge impacts along the border, Niagara Falls, New York, which relies on Canadians going back and forth. I mean, these are border communities that they are so used to Canadians coming on the weekends, and Canadians aren't going. This, my friends, is a dramatic shift. It shows that Canada is standing up for who we are, and it shows that we are not going to sneak off and break the boycott because we're getting a better deal or because the weather was cold and we wanted to go someplace warm. Up across Canada, we've seen visits to Canadian destinations up dramatically. We're visiting our own. We're building a sense of who we are as a nation. This is a story worth telling. So yeah, the snowbirds, they thought, well, come winter, all the snowbirds would return. Snowbirds held the line. They didn't give ground. This is an important story we're telling. The boycott remains strong.
Well, then Charlie Angus gave a shout out to the Meidas Down Under, the Meidas mates over in Australia. Here, play this clip.
Australia is with Canada 100%. We need Meidas here in Australia now because we have a far-right MAGA party gaining traction here. Clive Palmer and Pauline Hanson will try to influence Darkness needs to be stopped now. Well, Michael, you know, I've talked many times, Ben Meiselas and I've talked about a great location for a new Meidas network would be in Australia. So we need to get that Meidas voice, because it's that independent media that's challenging. What we're talking about here is not being talked about on our national news services. Same as what Ben is giving us. It's not being covered elsewhere. This is the news service for the people. So we want to find ways to build that story in Australia as well. Lena from Australia says,
That's right. As Charlie Angus said, the success of the boycott, unprecedented. This is confirmed by Amir Alon, the president and CEO of Longwoods International. Quote, "In my 37 years in the travel industry, I have never seen anything like what the Canadians have pulled off." By the numbers right here, the number of Canadians taking road trips into the U.S., the most common way of visiting, dropped by 5% last month compared to March 2025, and it's down 35% compared to March 2024. There was a 14% year-over-year decline in air travel from Canada to U.S. in March. In contrast, the volume of Americans visiting Canada in March was up 4% compared to a year ago. For a third consecutive month, more Canadians flew to overseas destinations than drove to the U.S., flipping a long-established pattern. Canadian visitor overseas was up 5% year-over-year, a sign Canadians are swapping the U.S. for other international destinations. Nearly a quarter, or 23% of Canadian travelers, have canceled a previously planned trip to the U.S., according to a Longwoods International tracking study of Canadian travelers. And a huge hit right here. In 2024, Canadian tourists injected $20.5 billion into the U.S. economy. But in early 2025, the Travel Association warned even a 10% reduction could translate to a $2.1 billion in lost spending and 140,000 lost jobs in the hospitality sector. But folks, the decline was 22%, more than double that hypothetical drop, which works out to a drop of roughly $4.5 billion in visitor spending. By the way, that's exactly what our prediction was. The question is, will this global anti-U.S. sentiment, which Canada has demonstrated why. I mean, it's anti-U.S. because the Trump regime has threatened the entire world. Will that translate into a boycott against the World Cup? I want to share this with you as well, because you've got Prime Minister Carney doing ice hockey or hockey diplomacy right here with Finnish President Alexander Stubb. He joined Canadian Prime Minister Carney as they were talking about transatlantic partnerships, helping Ukraine. They did it over hockey too. Here, play this clip.
We're going to have a good day in many ways. We have bilateral, so we have dinner tonight. Yep. We'll solve most of the world's problems. Work. Yeah. We're having to work on my backhand first, and then we're going to solve the world's problems and people in relationships. Yeah. And if I get lucky tomorrow on my way back via Montreal, I'm going to try to hook up with Patrick Laine, get him on ice for Montreal.
Powerful indeed. Make sure you all subscribe to Meidas Canada. And thanks everybody for watching. Hit subscribe and help us get to 7 million subscribers here. Head over to Meidas Canada and tell Charlie Angus we said hello. Just search Meidas Canada in the YouTube and say, "Charlie, Ben says hello." Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to add the MeidasTouch podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts for new updates every single day.